UFC 310 is the final pay-per-view of 2024. And while on paper it's not the most spectacular fight card we've seen this year, it is certainly a very good pay-per-view. The main event is interesting. The co-main event is absolutely phenomenal. And we have a whole bunch of really fun matchups throughout. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks. I'm going to give you my updated breakdown for UFC 310. Before we break down this card, let me remind you, there was a week off. You guys ate a whole bunch of turkey with some tryptophan in it. You may have fallen asleep and forgotten about how well I have been doing. I am up 11 of the last 13 fight cards. In this space, where nothing can be predicted, I am up 11 of the last 13 fight cards. Over 13 fight cards, I gave you a 22% ROI. The run that I'm on lately has been absolutely undeniable. And it's not just fight nights, it's pay-per-views as well. If we look at the last 5 pay-per-views specifically, 7.49 units of net profit. 37% ROI on pay-per-views specifically. Over the last 6 months, what we have been doing here is absolutely insane. You can unlock all the bets, all the picks, and everything that we do. It's only $10 a month. One of those bets that has been doing insanely well is the safety parlay. It is the beacon of stability in this space. In a very volatile world, the safety parlay continues to show up. 7 of the last 8. The only one I missed was an over 2.5 round that missed by freaking a minute and a half. It was right there. Nothing dangerous had happened at any point in that fight. And then boom, the lady went ahead and died on us. But it's okay because it is up 7 of the last 8. 5.45 units of net profit, a 68% ROI on one single bet. You can unlock all the bets, not just mine, but Jacob's as well, including the safety parlay right now. WeWantPicks.com. Click become a member. It's freaking $10 an entire month. But it's not just copy paste bets, and it's not just next week's event. First of all, when you unlock premium, it's a full month, and it is every single thing we do. We have bets built well out into the future. This time, this week, this last month, 15 units sitting on the board right now. We don't even have round lines or props yet. 15 units of bets between UFC 310 and UFC Tampa. Unlock those and the tools. For all of you that like to get ahead of the cards, do your own research. You don't live week to week. You live a month in the future. Well, the data analyzer is built out well into 2025. It has every single fight scheduled, all the data, all the tape study, anything you could want or need while doing that research. But you also have access to other tools like the DraftKings Optimizer. This will build DraftKings lineups for you. A couple clicks of the button, it'll spit out 150 lineups, and it is preloaded with the best DraftKings ownership projections on the planet. You'll also have access to the line movement tracker. The opening odds, current odds, win probability, and line movement for every fighter on every card is in this tracker. You can sort it, you can interact with it, and you can immediately spot the trends that you like or spot trends that will scare you away from some bets that are now all of a sudden pretty sketchy. You're also going to have access to the Prop Hunter. This is a curated set of data specifically designed to help you find prop bets. As sports betting becomes more and more popular, you're getting more and more options. You can bet on how many takedowns somebody gets, obviously how long a fight goes, how many strikes somebody's landing. All of that data is here for you, not only by fighter, but also how many is this getting landed in a decision win? How about a decision loss? How many are they absorbing? All of that data right here, ready to go, interactive, sortable, ready for you to go ahead, smash those bookies. I actually hate that when people are like, let's smash the bookies. Guys, we got slaughtered last week. We missed every single bet. Turns out I suck at this, but we're going to get back next week and smash those bookies. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check any of these Twitter chads. Just circle jerking each other. All 10 of them all suck, and they're all just like, we'll get them next week, bud. No, we'll get them next week, bud. Smash the bookies. Here I come. I don't know where that came from. I had a lot of built up whatever going on there. Anyway, premium membership, the greatest value in this space. Nothing comes close. It's like literally nothing. And it's what's happening here is funny because anybody who's been in this space for a little while, who's bet on this sport, who's sort of been absorbing content in this universe, understands how insanely solid we have been, how insanely solid premium membership is, and that value. What's also happening, though, is we're growing. The sport is growing. Sports betting in general is growing. So a lot of people are showing up that have never watched before, have never bet on fights before, and they're just trying to figure it all out. And those people will never understand until they expand, which I hope you don't. Just watch us. Nobody else is worth watching. never understand how insane the rest of this space can be. People suck at this. Not me and baby Jake. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. It's freaking $10. $10. You just went to your grandmother's house. You ate a ton of turkey. You fell asleep on the couch. You disappointed them. You have no girlfriend. You live in the basement. Like, they're very disappointed in you. So what'd you do? You stuffed your face. You drank too much. You passed out on the couch. Then you woke up the next day. You felt kind of like shit, right? So you got in the car or you walked. You got yourself a coffee to try to push it out, clean out your system. That was $10. You could have spent that $10 on premium membership and unlocked picks, bets, tools. Instead, you wasted it on a coffee because you ate too much and drank too much because you can tell your family's disappointed in you. Get your shit together. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. It's $10 a month. Relax, okay? We'll get your life sorted out. And after your life gets sorted out, if you want to send us a letter, we'll read the letter. UFC 310 is a pay-per-view. For all the pay-per-views, we film vlogs. So we'll read your letters. If you're a small business, we'll open the product. We'll showcase it. We'll talk about it. We Want Picks, P.O. Box 406 in Prosper, Texas, 75078. And while you were disappointing your grandmother and your parents and lying about your special roommate, Big Ange and the boys were updating our graphics. We've had the best graphics in this space for an insanely long time. Some people have tried to build their own graphics. One guy actually went to his grandmother's house, opened up the closet, dug in the back behind some World War II memorabilia. He pulled out this screen like this, a CRT screen, the oldest computer I've ever seen with a floppy disk. Booted it up, sat down and said, I'm going to get those We Want Picks, boys. And he built his own graphics with MS Paint. And they're the worst things I've ever seen in my entire life. Everybody else doing the Tapology bullshit. Not the boys. Not the boys. And you guys know I love glazing my own graphics. Today's not going to be any different. I'll tell you that much. I did update the graphics. The number one request will be, can we get the odds, please? Well, guess what you just got? The odds. So obviously for every fight, we have two graphics. We have the main screen, which has the DraftKings fantasy pricing, the opening odds, the current odds. And then we have the tail of the tape screen. This is the one you'll see in the Quick Picks videos. This is the one we upload to Instagram. Also, follow us on Instagram. I've updated this one to make it more meaningful, more useful, prettier on the eyes. If we take a look at Kennedy and Nzechukwu, you're going to get the flag on this graphic, which we didn't have before. You're going to get the record. You're going to get the odds, which we did not have before on this graphic. Also, the last five, which we did not have before on this graphic. All net new data. We still managed to keep it clean, informative, and this looks more like the UFC's official on-screen tail-to-tape graphics. You're also going to see up top, obviously, the event number. Under that, you're going to see the weight class, and then Hayabusa. Hayabusa is officially a partner of the show, and I'm very happy. I'm very proud. I absolutely love that company. When I was managing professional fighters, we used to get Hayabusa products for the fighters, like Nick Newell, for example. If you go watch some of his Bellator fights, you'll see Hayabusa right across his ass. I absolutely love Hayabusa. If you don't know who they are, they make like really high quality training equipment. Everything from shorts and rash guards for jiu-jitsu to punching bags to some of the best boxing and kickboxing gloves you will ever have the opportunity to buy. I love them. They are now officially a partner of the show, and I'm very proud of that. What I am looking to do, I got to talk to my wife. Sorry for the tangent. We'll talk about the fights in a second. Fucking relax. There's chapters and grow up. What I want to do, I've got two little girls, for those of you who don't know, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I'm starting to introduce them to combat sports, whether it's kickboxing, wrestling, not jiu-jitsu just yet, but I'm going to introduce them to combat sports. Hayabusa sent us over some gloves for them, so I've got really nice gloves for them, and we're going to start to get that going. I think I'm going to try to vlog their process. The problem is I got to figure out what to do here because I cover their faces. If you watch any of the previous vlogs, I cover my kids' faces because I'm not trying to make kid content. But I don't know how I'm going to vlog their combat sports journey with cartoon Elsas over their face. So I got to figure that out, talk to my wife, see what she's comfortable with, not comfortable with. But either way, support Hayabusa. They're supporting us. And we're going to have some more cool stuff to come for them. Let's go ahead and break down these fights. If you're watching this video, you are on the right video. I already broke down this card last week before the break, and we have a couple of changes. Most notably, this fight was added to the card. Brzeski was also on this card already. His opponent dropped. Kennedy Nzechukwu said, I'm here. So we got Kennedy Nzechukwu taking on Brzeski. Kenny Nzechukwu is very, very big. You can see here on this beautiful graphic. I mean, like right there. It's so your eyes just go, boom. Oh, he's 6'5". Wow, an 83-inch reach. Oh, he's only 32. He's a southpaw. Look at that. He is a huge guy for this weight class. He's got decent takedown defense. He's never out of a fight. We've talked about this in the past. There's been multiple fights where he falls behind in the scorecards because he's a little gun shy. Takes his time a little too much, starts to fall behind, and then turns it around, gets that finish late. He is powerful. When he does throw, he can be accurate and very, very dangerous. He's typically pretty durable, but somewhat unreliable. He is coming off that first-round stoppage over Chris Barnett back at UFC 308. He's taking on Lukasz Brzeski. This guy's a well-rounded heavyweight. He's got solid power, solid speed, decent takedowns. His leg kicks are nice. He is athletic, and he has no problem taking chances. He'll spin, he'll work his way in, and he'll just get after it. Problem is, he's chinny. He's not a quitter, but his chin may quit on him. He's coming off that early knockout loss to a typically pretty low-power Mick Parkin. This is at heavyweight. Kennedy Nzechukwu's not truly a heavyweight. He was a light heavyweight. This is his second fight up, but he's fine. He's a massive dude. He looked fine the Chris Barnett fight, and he's actually the only person to beat Carlos Ulberg in MMA. In typical Kennedy Nzechukwu, losing that fight, and then boom, landed that big power. I mentioned Lukasz was supposed to be on this card. He was supposed to be fighting a UFC newcomer. He was literally being fed to a young prospect, and now he's fighting a UFC veteran. And the matchup and the circumstances are very different now, but I'm pretty sure the outcome is going to be the same. Kennedy should win here. He's not going to be the faster striker, but he's certainly going to be more powerful. He's physically imposing. He's long. And if he picks up that activity, he's going to smoke Lukasz here. The odds are new. I use BetOnline. I live in Texas. I can't use DraftKings, so I use BetOnline. I have these odds. These are the official betting odds on other books, but it's not available on BetOnline just yet. Minus 500 seems fair to me. I might honestly throw that in a parlay. Beyond that, you got to be a little careful. But minus 500, throw a couple of those together, and you're looking at like a minus 160, something like that parlay. Kenny Nzechukwu should win. Pretty confident in that. Then we got a rematch. This is surprisingly early in the card. I think this is technically the early prelims. And this, as of right now, unless the UFC changes the order again, this is the official fight order. I don't know what they're doing here. I don't know if this was like, hey, we need to get people to watch on Fight Pass, or if they're like, this fight's going to suck. I am surprised this fight is as early as it is. To me, this is a fun fight. I think it's a blowout, but it should be a fun fight. This is a rematch I mentioned. These two grappled last year. Clay shot an early takedown. Chase kind of stuffed it, took his back, and just did whatever the hell he wanted to do. Ultimately ended up submitting Clay Guida with a calf slicer, which is kind of an embarrassing thing to get submitted at that level. Anyway, we got Clay Guida. If you're new to this sport, you've only seen the old Clay Guida. He's decent, but not great. If you're not new to this sport, then you know who Clay Guida used to be, the Energizer Bunny of fighters. Just nonstop movement. He's very, very mobile. And this was his, literally, up top, he's moving like crazy. His feet are moving like crazy. In and out, had cardio for months. He would shoot nice takedowns. He had decent striking. He was an absolute gamer with no quit in him whatsoever. He is a dying breed. He's the Generation 2 fighter, we'll call it. We had Gen 1, the Royce Gracies of the world. Generation 1.5, which was like the true mixed martial artists, the evolution from the Gen 1 guys. That's like the Titos and the Chucks. And then the Gen 2 are the guys that are just straight up mixed martial artists. That's the Clay Guida generation. And now we've got the Generation 3 guys that are just phenomenal at everything. Don't have any background in one specific thing. Just train all the things and always have since they were children. Clay Guida is that dying breed of number 2. He's good at everything. Been around forever. Really tough guy. Full-time carpenter. He's actually in the union. That's why his nickname is Clay the Carpenter Guida. But he is 42 years old. And if you go watch a video of 2008 Clay Guida, you'll be like, wow, he should smoke Chase Hooper here. But it's not 2008, and he's 42 years old. And he's coming off that loss to Joaquim Silva, who is also an old man, where they exchanged a couple takedowns, but it was very sloppy overall. He's taking on Chase Hooper, little baby Chase. Slick grappler, takedowns are getting better, the striking's getting better. And it wasn't long ago that his takedowns didn't even exist. And while his striking isn't phenomenal, he did just drop Vyacheslav Borshev, the team alpha male striking coach. Got dropped big time by Chasey Hoops. He is coming off of that win. That was his last fight. He snatched up a Darce after dropping him. And Chase Hooper's an interesting guy because he's not very physically imposing, and he's kind of tough, but he's not an athlete. He's not a 1%er. He's just a kid that's got some slick grappling that works pretty hard. And he uses those skills. High fight IQ, evolving striking, evolving takedowns, fighting a 42-year-old man. He already beat Clay Guida. He should win this fight. Jacob and I were debating this. I'm very curious to see what his official pick is here because he seemed flabbergasted that I said Chase Hooper smokes you. He's like, what's going to happen if Clay doesn't shoot a takedown? What's Chase going to do then? You think Chase can win a kickboxing match? Yes, I do. Clay Guida's 42 years old. If we haven't learned by now that these old guys can't cut it anymore, I don't know when we're going to learn that. And it's one thing if the fighter is old, but they're relatively not beaten up. That was an odd way to phrase that. But let's say they started their career at 36 and now they're 42. Okay. That was what happened with Randy Couture back in the day. He started his MMA career very late after the Army. So he wasn't beat up. There was a stat mentioned, this was about 15 years ago they mentioned this. ESPN did, I don't know how they did it, but some sort of study or whatever, that said the peak of a combat sports athlete's career is not at a specific age, but at the 16th year or something like that. I forget what the number was, of their journey from like day one. And 16 seems too high. I forget what, you know what, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it was at a point in their career, not necessarily the age. Point being, this very roundabout, missed the entire point, circling back, just going to change the point so you don't notice that I missed the first one. Point being, Clay Guida's been around way too long. His body is beat to shit. He's physically slowing down. This isn't a guy who started late and is going to have a longer career. He's already had a very long career, and he started early. So Clay Guida, unfortunately for him, isn't going to have an easy road into the sunset. Chase Hooper absolutely smokes here, and these odds are just getting farther and farther away. Then we got Mikey Mav taking on Max Payne Griffin. Mikey Mav is an underdog that I'm probably going to pick here, and there's been a couple of these fights. This is an interesting fight card, and once you get to the end of the year, you get a lot of interesting fight cards because the UFC is contractually obligated to offer every single fighter that they have under contract 3 fights a year. They just have to offer them. They don't have to give you 3, but they have to offer 3. So what happens towards the end of the year, towards the holidays, is people just start saying yes. They need the money. Holidays are coming up, or they didn't make enough the year. So people just start saying yes. So you start to get some matchups of some older people, some younger people, some people who just pop up fighting one time a year. And we have a couple of matchups like that on this card. We got Michael Chiesa taking on Max Griffin. Michael Chiesa is a grappler, pretty one-dimensional guy. He's got a pretty straightforward game plan. He's going to come forward. He's going to look for takedowns. He's going to work from there. He doesn't really have a ton of takedowns, and he's not like a nasty wrestler. He's a wrestler. He competed in multiple levels. Famously was Terrence McKinney's wrestling coach. But Michael Chiesa isn't exactly shooting wild blast doubles from across the cage. He'll come forward. He'll pressure you. He'll lock you up. He'll trip you to the ground and work from there. Once he is on top, he's got good pressure, and he'll alternate well between ground and pound and submissions. He's taking on Max Payne Griffin. He's a powerful striker. Some incredible knockouts, total of 8 knockdowns in his UFC career. Famously, when he fought Ramiz Brahimaj, punched that dude so hard his ear literally came off. His ear was hanging on by like a tiny piece of skin. It's actually gruesome if you want to go look it up. He averages almost 2 takedowns per fight. He's coming off that razor-thin win over Jeremiah Wells back in February. And Mikey Mav, this is the end of his career. They've got him on the analyst desk doing some of that work. What is interesting, though, is sitting there, analyzing fights, coaching, for example. I wrestled the majority of my life, then I transitioned to coaching. I felt like I became a better wrestler from coaching. You're just looking at things a little differently. You're learning more than when you were actually competing. And what was interesting is Michael Chiesa seems to be doing the same. He's slowing down. He was never fast to begin with. But he seems to have higher and higher fight IQ, better and better game plans. By no means is he a super athlete, but I do think Michael Chiesa can eliminate the space, can avoid the power and the danger of Max Griffin, get Max to the cage, drag him to the ground, and squeak out a win here. I'm going to pick Michael Chiesa to win this fight. This is a tricky fight. I do think it goes a little bit, so we'll see when we get the prop bets. Maybe we'll get the solid over. Maybe we can get Michael Chiesa at plus 3.5, right? Betting the spread. Just need him to win a round. We'll see what happens when the prop bets drop. But for now, I'm going to pick the dog here. And then we're jumping right back into another dog because, spoiler alert, I'm picking Cody Durden. And this is a really fun matchup. We got Cody Durden taking on Joshua Van. Cody Durden, as we know, a pressure wrestler. He averages almost 5 takedowns per fight. He wants to come forward, show that looping power, throw those shots, and then look for takedowns. He will chain wrestle. He'll miss a couple takedowns, but he'll stick with it. He'll continue to dive at legs until he eventually does get one. While his wrestling is nonstop, his pressure is nonstop, he does have some control gaps. He can get you to the ground, but sometimes people are just popping right back up. That's why he's averaging 5 takedowns per fight and not just 3 or a lower number. Cody Durden's a dog. He's got dog in him. Problem is his chin isn't there. And while I love to see a guy bite down at his mouthpiece and just swing wild, what I don't love to see is a guy who can get knocked out, bite down at his mouthpiece and swing wild. He's taking on Josh Van. Josh Van can also be a little bit, teeny bit chinny himself. Solid striker, good aggression. He's got some power in there. His takedowns and scramble skills are decent. He is only 23 years old, so he's improving at an incredible rate. Everything he does is getting better and better each fight. He is primarily a striker, but he can grapple. He does a nice job looking for things in scrambles, making people work. He is coming off that bounce-back win over Edgar Charez, where his offensive striking was on display, but looked like he had a little bit of a lack in confidence, and he ate a spinning back fist that almost put him out. So now we have a battle of 2 guys that are willing to bite down and slug it out, neither one of which have a good enough chin to be using that strategy. So we're going to have a Cody Durden moving forward, hopefully not striking for too long because I don't need him to get knocked out here, taking on a Josh Van who wants to keep this striking and wants to keep it on his feet. I imagine Cody's going to miss a couple of takedowns, but he's going to be relentless. He's going to continue to shoot over and over and over again. And after the first takedown, after the second takedown, Josh Van's confidence is going to continue to deplete. He's going to get frustrated. Cody will take over, and I think Cody wins this fight. I think the forward pressure wrestling, the insane cardio is going to be the difference here. There's a 10-year age difference. And if it was 33 to 43, very different breakdown. But 23 to 33, Cody Durden right now, other than the chinniness, is probably as good as he's going to be. And this version, the nonstop wrestler, forward progress Cody Durden, can beat Josh Van. So he's going to be the pick. He's plus 138 as a dog right now. He was plus 135 the other day. So he's just ticking. They're ticking up. I'm keeping an eye on my own line movement tracker. That's why the tools on WeWantPicks.com can be pretty helpful. If he went from plus 135 to plus 134, I actually would have bet him right there on the spot. Like, all right, value's going. Let me bet him. But I'm going to keep an eye on him. If he continues to widen, as soon as I think we're at the peak, I'm going to place a bet on Cody Durden. I think he absolutely gets it done. If he gets insanely wide, well, then I might do a plus 3.5 as well, because he can certainly win a round here. Obviously, they're both chinny. Either one of these guys can get knocked out, but I think we're going to get Cody Durden focused on winning, not trying to put on a show, not swinging wild, just shooting nonstop takedowns. And that's what we want out of you, buddy. That's what we need. Just win the fights. Win the fights. Then the money is there. Your next opponent is undeniable. The problem is once you start doing shit for fun and you start trying to put on a show and you take a few too many shots and then you start to get a little chinny, your chin's not there anymore. Eventually you're going to have that skid, that 3-fight skid. The UFC's not going to give a shit. They're going to be like, yeah, you were fun, but sorry, you were never a title contender and you're on a 3-fight skid. It's hard to market you, so you got to go. So just focus on the wins. Get the wins. And Cody's an exciting guy even when he's all in the wrestling. So hopefully Cody just wrestles nonstop, gets the win, and we make some money. Then we got a battle of the olds. Chris Weidman taking on Eryk Anders. I am flipping my pick here. Guys, I'm flipping my pick. Okay? If you only watched the other video and you didn't watch this one, first, you're not hearing this little speech. Second, sorry for you. Sorry about you. Because I am going to switch my pick here. We got Chris Weidman taking on Eryk Anders. Couple of things. One, this fight was supposed to happen at UFC 309. Eryk Anders pulled out. He had food poisoning the day of the fight. So the day of the fight, he pulls out. This fight never happens. And now we have rebooked it at 195 pounds, not 185, 195. And they're going to get after it at UFC 310. I don't know if the weight change is because, yeah, it's Thanksgiving. If it's 10 pounds, who cares? We both agree, no big deal. Or if there was something more meaningful there. But either way, it's at 195. They're both at the exact same circumstance there, either disadvantage or advantage, whatever you want to call it. Apparently, Chris Weidman didn't get paid. There's a couple media outlets reporting he didn't get his show money from the UFC when this fight didn't happen. And Chris Weidman is obviously pretty annoyed at that because he's like, I showed up. I weighed in. I was ready to go. My opponent didn't show up. You need to pay me for my time and give me my show money. This is a very similar. Remember the dramatics when Wonderboy Thompson wouldn't fight Michelle Pereira? That was a little different because Michelle Pereira missed weight and Wonderboy said, I'm not fighting him. Chris was ready to go, and he got a phone call like an hour before the start time, and they said, your opponent's out. So I don't know if those reports are true or not. Hopefully they're not true. That type of stuff just only makes the UFC look bad. I understand the Wonder Boy piece, because while Wonder Boy was in the correct of he made weight and he showed up, he chose not to fight. He actively made a decision not to fight. That's not the case with Chris Weidman. He wanted to fight, he just couldn't. And it wasn't his fault. So hopefully Chris Weidman got paid. What they'll typically do in these situations is, like, let's say Chris Weidman gets $200,000 to show. He's a former world champion. They'll give him like 50, 30. And while it's something, it's a lot of money to a lot of people, it's not what he was expecting, what he was planning on. They build their lives around these fights. Like, all right, I'm going to make this much money on this day, and then this, and then that. And that's a long rant to say, hopefully Chris Weidman gets a little more than a couple of bucks, because that was not his fault. We got Chris Weidman, former world champion. He's coming out of that Sarah Longo fight gym. He was a Division I college wrestler, transitioned to MMA, worked on his striking, had a very good career. Personality-wise, all-time great. Watch him on the weigh-in shows. The guy's a ton of fun. But he is 40 years old. That Division I wrestling seems to be well into his past. The striking, offensively, it's there. The chin's not really there. Towards the tail end of his career, his chin wasn't there. But he did resurrect his career with the famous double eye poke win over Bruno Silva in his last fight. He's taking on Eryk Anders, former Division I football player. Yeah, he spells his name with a Y, which makes absolutely no freaking sense whatsoever. But what he does do, that does make some sense, is he comes forward like an absolute bulldog and physically imposes himself on the people. He's not typically the most skilled fighter in the cage, but he is a physically imposing guy. Think about the type of human being you need to be on the best college football team in the country. And if you're not from America, I don't know what analogy I can use for you, but this guy is a super athlete. He hits like a freight train. He comes forward. He is aggressive. He's got power. He's all the things that you want in a fighter. He's a little slow, but he makes up for any lack of speed here with just power and durability and damage. And every single thing he does, he is trying to hurt you. So Eryk Anders was not the pick. First time I broke this down, I said, I think Weidman can do it. But the first time I broke this down, we were at Madison Square Garden. Chris Weidman seemed to be revitalized. He looked good. Everything leading up to that fight looked great. But then we had the chaos of this fight. And now he might be frustrated that he didn't get paid. And he's not fighting at Madison Square Garden anymore. So I'm going to go Eryk Anders here. I flipped my pick. Eryk Anders is now the pick. It was Chris Weidman. It is no longer Chris Weidman. It is Eryk Anders. Hopefully you didn't bet on Weidman, because I didn't, so you shouldn't. Then we got Randy Brown taking on Bryan Battle. This is a fight that's got a lot of people talking, because the odds are a little crazy. Minus 180 on these brand new graphics. Oh, wow, the odds are on these graphics too. So hold on, Ange. I can see all of the meaningful statistics, like their striking and their grappling, their physical attributes, and what country they're from, and the odds, and I can see what they did in their last 5 fights. Wow. Sometimes I impress myself. We got Bryan Battle taking on Randy Brown. The reason this fight's a bit controversial is Randy Brown is going to be the best fighter that Bryan Battle has fought so far. That is without question. And Bryan Battle is still basically a 2-1 favorite. And Bryan Battle's a dog. He's got a neck for days, but that doesn't stop him from moving forward and trying to rip your head off. He does get hit. His striking defense is not very good. He does get hit. He moves forward. But this guy has the mental fortitude and the work ethic that you love to see. He has worked his way to where he is. This isn't natural God-given talent. This is hard work. This was a 300-pound man that was knocked unconscious early in his career. And he said, I can't keep doing this. And he changed his life. He is now 170 pounds, absolutely shredded. And every single time he goes out there, you see improvements in the skills and improvements in his physical appearance. Hard work will get you places, and Bryan Battle is the epitome of that. He's taking on Randy Brown. Randy Brown's skilled. He's a very good striker. He uses range really well. He's stupid tall for this weight class at 6'3", and he takes advantage of that. He's got long jabs. He's got long kicks. He'll keep you at range. And then when he's ready, he'll use his speed to initiate those boxing exchanges and close that range. He can also offensively wrestle. He has 9 takedowns in the UFC, and he doesn't use them a ton, but they're there if he needs them. And if he gets you to the ground, he's got solid jiu-jitsu as well. He is very good. He's a lot of fun to watch. He is coming off that decision win over Liza Zaleski where he was taken down 4 times, but the striking showcase was next level. Randy Brown is going to be the better striker in this matchup. He's going to have the faster and cleaner hands. But the old adage that I've mentioned on this show a whole bunch of times is you got to brawl the boxer or box the brawler. Meaning, if Randy Brown is the clean, more technical striker, you're not going to clean out technique him. You need to get his face, make it ugly, make it dirty, brawl him. You brawl the boxer. And that is kind of how Bryan Battle fights. He doesn't do things clean. He just gets in your face and he stays dirty and grindy and makes it happen. So for that reason, I am going to pick Bryan Battle. I think it's going to be a little frustrating for Randy Brown to stay on the outside and keep it technical when you have somebody just charging forward at you, making it ugly. But Bryan Battle is going to get hit a lot in this fight. He was hit a lot in his last fight. He just smoked Kevin Josette. He did an incredible post-fight speech, just shit on the French people in France, not a care in the world. But he was hit a lot in that fight, the most he had ever been hit in his career. And if Randy Brown does more of the same, it could be a problem for Bryan Battle. Hopefully these odds continue to shrink. It wasn't too long ago Bryan Battle was a minus 300, a 3-1 favorite. Now he's under a 2-1 favorite. So again, I'm going to eat my own dog food, drink my own champagne. I'm going to use the line moving tracker. If we get Bryan Battle minus 150 world, I'll bet on him. So we'll see what happens here. Bryan Battle's going to be the pick, literally because I think it's a clash of styles that will benefit him more. I think Randy may get frustrated with that forward pressure. Then we have another fight that's on a surprising part of this fight card. I do think this should be a main card fight. And Movsar Evloev is top 5 boring fighters. Like, he's not exciting at all. And somebody's feelings are going to be hurt that I said he's not exciting. Somebody said that the other day. What do you mean he's boring? Dude, shut the fuck. I have wrestled my entire life. I got my blue belt in jiu-jitsu in 2004. I've been grappling for 20 plus years. I love that sport. It's fucking boring. It's boring. Movsar Evloev is boring. Don't come at me with some casual. Get the fuck out of here. Casual. It's boring. He's boring. If Movsar Evloev wins this fight, it will be a boring fight. That's it. That's just how it's going to be. Aljamain Sterling's kind of boring too. So we got 2 guys who want to keep this pace as slow as possible and just wet blanket. You want Movsar Evloev, if you're him, you want him to get the takedowns, hang on top, do literally nothing. If you're Aljamain Sterling fan, you want him to get the takedown, get on his back, and just sit there. Backpack. He's a backpack grappler. You guys are boring as shit. That's probably why they're not on the main card. But I do think they should be on the main card because I love this sport and I appreciate the rankings and I appreciate fights that matter for the division. This fight matters for the division. If Movsar Evloev becomes 19-0, beats a former world champion, you can't deny his place anymore. If Aljamain Sterling somehow pulls off the upset, beats Movsar, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, featherweight Aljamain Sterling is a whole different person. But you know what I think this fight's going to look like? I'm varying from normally I do like, I'm going to make fun of myself right now. Normally it's like, we got a fun forward pressure wrestler taking on I'm not doing that. We're just going to get to the point. You guys know both these people. Very good wrestler, just okay wrestler. There's your breakdown. This fight might look, and the skills are different, this might look exactly like the Petr Yan Deiveson Figueiredo fight, where the bigger, more well-established person in that weight class is kind of dominating. Aljamain Sterling's best thing is his wrestling and his grappling. That's his best thing. Movsar Evloev is a better wrestler. What are we doing? Like, that's it. Movsar Evloev also has very good striking. And Aljamain Sterling's striking is not good. It's unconventional. It's weird. And people try to pretend that his unconventional striking is like on purpose. Not on purpose. He just kind of sucks at striking. Like, it's not like he woke up one day and was like, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to throw strikes like a weirdo. And we're going to call it the Funk Master. That's what we're going to... No! That's just how he throws strikes. Everybody's different. And his is different. And it's just become his fight style. That's what he's comfortable with. But let's not pretend Aljamain Sterling is this high-level striker with a carefully curated striking style that is designed to catch people off guard. Oh, so did Ben Askren do the same thing? Ben Askren had it? No, he's just not a good striker. Aljamain Sterling, I'm a big fan of his. I love Aljamain Sterling. I think it is a shame that he never got the true credit he deserves. He is technically the greatest bantamweight champion in history. Literally. And he still doesn't get any of that respect because there was an eye poke. No, sorry, there was an illegal knee when he won the belt. Then it was a controversial decision. Then he fought a guy with one arm. So, like, there's a lot of controversy and there's an asterisk next to every one of his title wins. But I do think that's bullshit. The guy showed up, did what he was supposed to do every time he was supposed to do it. So I like Aljamain Sterling. This railroading is more against the delusional fans. That's the problem with the fans of this sport. And that's every sport. I was at the Cowboys game for Thanksgiving. They ended up winning the game. So the delusion wasn't crazy. Well, how many, this is our year. This is our year. Same thing with Aljo fans. I love Aljo. I'm a fan of his. I have his rum. We're going to talk about our drinking game. What I'm going to do with that rum in a little bit. Movsar Evloev just absolutely mobs this dude. Just takes him down whenever he wants to and does whatever he wants. And people are going to be like, well, he didn't really, he barely beat Arnold Allen. No, he didn't. He beat Arnold Allen. It's pretty straightforward. Be like, but the knees were perfectly legal. It's nobody's fault but Arnold Allen's. They left his dumbass head down there. Movsar Evloev is the pick, and this anger and aggression is for you, the comment guy. Then we got Vicente Luque taking on Themba Gorimbo. Somewhat short notice. Vicente Luque was supposed to fight Nicholas Diaz. But Nick Diaz seems to be going on an all-time bender, losing his absolute mind, crouched down on the curb, trying to light grass on fire, shirtless, with really skinny arms, like a crackhead. Somebody commented, he was just, his friend died and he was doing a tribute. No, dude, get the fuck. Was his tribute trying to overdose? Was that how he tributes? Because that looked like a crackhead. I've spent a lot of time in a lot of cities. I got a good idea what a crackhead looks like. That was pretty damn close. If we were walking on the street and I saw, knowing full well that was Nick Diaz, saw him crouched down, like in the median, shirtless, trying to light some shit on fire all weird, I'd be like, girls, we're crossing the fucking street. That's a crackhead. And I hope he gets his life together because I love Nick Diaz. I loved Nick Diaz not only day one in the UFC, but also when he left the UFC. Fought Takanori Gomi. Had some all-timers outside of the organization. So hopefully he gets his life together. Hopefully it was just a bad trip on mushrooms and not a broader issue like injectables. We got Vicente Luque. Pretty good everywhere. He's a good fighter overall. He's got power in his hands, solid wrestling defense, fantastic submissions if it gets to the ground. At the end of the day, though, he's typically a striker. He's looking to bang it out on his feet. The 62% takedown defense doesn't seem like phenomenal, but let's not forget, A, he has fought some of the best people in this division for a very long time, and B, there's a couple of fights that skew those stats. Belal Muhammad took him down over and over and over and over again in a 5-round fight. If you remove the Belal Muhammad fight, Vicente Luque has only been taken down 7 times in 16 fights. That's less than 1 time per fight. And again, he's fighting all top-level people. Themba Gorimbo will be the lowest-ranked person Vicente Luque has fought in an insanely long time. But Themba Gorimbo's pretty good. He's on a nice little streak here. Famously, The Rock bought him, I think it was an apartment or a condo, because The Rock heard his story. Dwayne The Rock Johnson heard his story. Where he came from. He's sleeping on the gym floor, trying to better his life. And The Rock's like, I'm rich. This guy's working his ass off. Let me take care of the people. And Themba has lived up to that. He's lived his life the right way since then. He's been winning fights. He's been working hard, continues to show like gratitude. Didn't turn into some fake clout-chasing superstar. If The Rock featured me, if The Rock was like, hey, that Italian kid, his parents are immigrants, first-generation American. He's just trying to raise his family and do this YouTube thing. Go support him. And The Rock was like, came out here, we filmed it. Dude, I would never be the same again. I would be so different. Themba didn't do that. Stayed exactly who he is. Very principled man and good for him. Fighting-wise, he's good. He's a decent distance striker. He can manage that range pretty well, pick his shots pretty well. He's tall. He's long. And he uses that length to keep you away. Typically a counter striker, but every now and then he'll charge forward if he sees his opening. He's got solid takedown defense. He's just going to widen his base, make you carry his weight. And now all of a sudden he's a Nurmagomedov with the takedowns. He has 17 takedowns in 5 UFC fights, and he's coming off his second grapple-heavy win in a row. And for that reason, I think Themba can win this fight. The formula to beat Vicente Luque is just take him down. That's the formula. You can strike with him for a little bit if you want. He's getting a little older, a little slower, but he's still very good. He's a high-level fighter. I was always in the camp that Vicente's a little overrated. He had a couple of solid wins, and then it was like, Vicente Luque is the best guy in the world. But he is good, and he's quite literally the best fighter Themba has ever fought. But I do think if Themba comes forward, trusts his wrestling, trusts his cardio, and just puts that pace on Vicente, he can absolutely get it done. We could be in a weird situation, though, where we get to see, oh, there are levels to this. Experience does matter. And all of a sudden, Vicente puts on a show. But based off his last performance, I think Vicente's best days are behind him. I don't want to say he quit. He's not really a quitter. The guy's been through some shit. He got a brain bleed after fighting Jeff Neal. But the loss to Joaquin Buckley wasn't a great look. Then we have the featured prelim of the evening. We got a couple of guys at the wrong end of their careers that the UFC said, you know what fight we need to show as many people as possible? It's this fight. And obviously everybody wants to be on a pay-per-view main card. There's like some prestige and some status to being a main card UFC fighter. The reality is the prelims get more views. The prelims are on ESPN, broadcast freely throughout the world. Pay-per-view you got to pay for. Not everybody buys the pay-per-view. So being the featured prelim will actually get you more eyes than being on the main card. So it is interesting that the UFC said, here's a fight that essentially means nothing against two guys that are pretty old. Their recent fight streaks have not been great. Let's show them to the world. This should be down. To make this, here's how I would do the card. Move this fight down. Take Nate Landwehr. Make him the featured prelim because that's going to be an exciting fight no matter what. And then take Movsar Evloev and put him on the main card. That's how this card should be structured. This is bizarre structuring on this card. Anyway, we got Anthony Smith taking on Dominick Reyes. Remember that whole speech I gave you about Michael Chiesa, the back end of his career, doing the analyst stuff? That's Anthony Smith right now. Anthony Smith's still a decent fighter, though. He's got great hands, solid kicks. He's got good jiu-jitsu. We've seen that in more than one fight. He has submissions over several top 5, top 10 fighters on the roster. Insanely tough. Go back a few years to COVID when Glover Teixeira knocked the teeth out of Anthony Smith's mouth. He picked up his own teeth, handed them to the referee, and continued the fight. Anthony Smith is an all-time tough guy. He's starting to lose his mind a little bit. Famously, a few years ago, he's yelling at Johnny Walker, "Why'd you break into my house?" Made no sense. But Anthony Smith is a guy that still has some skills. He can be finished, but he's still pretty durable. And I would argue he's more durable than Dominick Reyes. People are going to hate that. He is coming off that short notice loss to Roman Dolidze at UFC 303, which was a bit of a staring contest. Dominick Reyes just broke a 4-fight skid. He's a former title challenger. A lot of people at the time said he beat John Jones. Even Dana White, the ultimate John Jones glazer, at the time said Dominick Reyes won that fight. But since that fight, the biggest fight of his career, he was just getting smoked, just knocked out, smoked. And it's been a very long time. But then he finally found success. He finally just beat Dustin Jacoby. He knocked him out, broke that insane 4-fight skid, looked pretty good doing it. Style-wise, he's a long guy. He's got some good striking. Doesn't really wrestle very much, but he does have 2 takedowns in the UFC, an insanely low 28% takedown accuracy, but a very solid 80% takedown defense, and that's because he is so tall, so long, he can defend most things. Dominick Reyes got his first win in 5 years. His first win in 5 years. During that span, Anthony Smith has been out here fighting some of the best people on the planet, beating some, losing to others. Couple of close decisions in the mix. And Dominick Reyes was just getting smoked. Then he comes out, beats a journeyman in Dustin Jacoby, and I like Dustin Jacoby. But Dustin Jacoby's, the last couple of fights, things haven't been great for him. But he beats Dustin Jacoby, and now it's like, 3-1 favorite, Dominick Reyes. And I picked Anthony Smith the last time I broke down this fight, and people were like, picking Anthony Smith in 2024 is crazy work, bro. Is it? I would argue picking Dominick Reyes is crazier. I didn't pick Anthony Smith against a young killer. I picked him against the guy that we have seen unconscious more than we haven't seen him unconscious. Dominick Reyes is not that good. He had one performance that was amazing, and then a bunch of trash. I think Anthony Smith could potentially win this fight. But again, the same speech and rant I did last time, picks and bets are not the same thing. Just because I sat here and said I think Anthony Smith will win this fight doesn't mean I said go into your mom's drawer, steal $20 out of her purse and go bet on him. That's not what I said. I said I think he could win this fight. Could. Because he's been far more active. I think he's the better, more technical striker, frankly. And he's the tougher of the two, and I think he's more durable. Is he durable? No. Is Dominick Reyes durable? No. Is Anthony Smith more durable than an also not durable Dominick Reyes? Maybe. Picks and bets are not the same thing, and not all picks are the same. That whole speech about Movsar smokes. Do I sound like I'm picking Anthony Smith with the same confidence I picked Movsar or Chase? No, of course not. Listen to the words, people. Anthony Smith is going to be the pick, though. Cry about it. What you don't want to cry about, though, is having 50 extra bucks. We'll send you $50. Just go to WeWantPicks.com/bets. Sign up with any one of our sportsbook partners. Make a deposit. We send you $50 to take. It's affiliate marketing. It's a pretty straightforward process here. You use the link. You sign up. They're going to pay me. I slice off some of that money. I give it right back to you. Could take about a week or so. Everything has to flow through the system. They got to validate. I got to validate. But $50. Real money. WeWantPicks.com/bets. You can then use that real money to become a premium member. Here's how we've been doing. While the rest of the world's been crying about, these cars, 2024 sucks. I can't wait to get through this year. 2025 is going to be our year. Not us. We had a great 2024. Can you win every single week? Of course not. That's literally impossible. Can we win way more often than we lose? Yeah, you're looking at it. Up 11 of the last 13 fight cards. 22% ROI. ROI is the most important number. The most important number is ROI. And it's not just the fight nights. It's not just the last 13. If we look at the last 5 pay-per-views, if we look at the last 6 months, smoking 37% ROI on the last 5 pay-per-views. Almost 8 units of net profit over 5 pay-per-views. This is not an accident. Unlock everything you could want or need heading into a fight week right now. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. It's not just copy-paste bets. You will get tools. I'm going to feature the data analyzer here for 2 reasons. 1, this single tool is the only thing you could ever need breaking down fights. And 2, no, let me stick with 1. We coded it from scratch. It doesn't exist anywhere else. We built it from zero. Now, 2, it is future-proof. It is built out for the events in the future. There are 2025 fight cards built into this. So while everybody else is taking a break, doing jack all, we're breaking down fights. We're doing research. We're giving you tools to break down fights, get ahead of the line movement, and prepare yourself for not only UFC 310, not only UFC Tampa, but the fights on the other side of the jump as well. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. It's freaking $10. $10 for an entire month. If it was $10 an event, it would be a bargain. It's $10 a month. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. We have a bunch of bets on the board. 15 units just for the last 2 cards of this year. Let's go ahead and hit up this main card. And opening up the UFC 310 main card, we have Nathaniel Landwehr taking on Choi. This is going to be a fun fight. That's probably why it's the main card opener. I think it should be the featured prelim because while it should be a fun fight, it doesn't matter, right? This doesn't matter for rankings. It doesn't matter. But it's really fun. That's what a featured prelim should be all about. Anyway, I'm going to watch the fight and I'm going to love it. Nate Landwehr is an absolute wild man. He's going to run forward. He's going to look for a finish at all costs. He is a talented guy. He's got some power. He's got some good skills, but he will put himself in harm's way for literally zero reason. He's never been in a boring fight. This one also won't be boring. Typically looks to pressure hard, get it to the ground, work from there. He is coming off that finish win over Jamal Emmers, where in typical Nate the Train fashion, he took a ton of damage, continued to move forward, and then won that fight with relentless pressure. He's taken on the Korean Superboy, Choi. He's also exciting. He's got 5 fight of the night bonuses in only 7 fights. Style-wise, he's a powerful striker. He's got okay takedown defense, does a really good job throwing straight punches, staying active, and not getting too wild, but remaining fun and exciting. He's a talented guy, but he does have a spotty record. If you dig a little deeper, you'll see a lot of that record has to do with the fact that he started his career, did really well, and the UFC said, here's a star, and they rushed him a little too much too soon. But he is coming off the win over Bill Algeo, which was his first win in 8 years. Should be a fun fight, though. Korean Superboy doesn't have too much time to live up to the hype that he once was. At one point in time, he was supposed to be the next big thing. Like, genuinely was supposed to be like, we have our superstar. He's from a part of the world with some diehard fans. He's exciting, and he has all the skills. But he faltered a couple of times. Pretty long layoffs in between those fights. Came back after a losing streak and a layoff. And then he almost beat Kyle Nelson. A couple of fouls prevented him from winning that fight. Then he finally just beat Bill Algeo and made it happen. This could be a fight. If he wins here, this could be a fight that doubles his stock. And now he's, here he goes, Superboy, living up to the expectations. But it's a tall task because Nate Landwehr is not going to quit. Choi's takedown defense is not great. And Nate Landwehr is just going to move forward and shoot a million takedowns. So I got to pick Nate Landwehr. 1 + 1 = 2 sometimes. Lack of takedown defense plus relentless pressure on takedowns equals Nate Landwehr win. Nate Landwehr is going to be the pick. The odds continue to widen. I will say Nate Landwehr is a bit chinny. And yeah, he's not getting knocked out. He's getting dropped. He's getting wobbled. He's getting put in harm's way pretty often. And Doo-Ho Choi has some power, can make stuff happen. And let's not forget, the almost knockouts, eventually they're not almost. Eventually he is just straight up knocked out. And Nate Landwehr is 36 years old. So I'm going to pick him, but I'm probably going to avoid this fight. Lots of red flags. Then we got Bryce Mitchell taking on Kron Gracie. They took a guy from the jungle, the woods, not the jungle, he lives on a farm. They took a guy from the farm. He was milking some cows and wrangling some chickens. And they said, go fight this homeless guy. Remember bum fights in the early 2000s? This is a bum fight. This is a bum fight. If you listen to Bryce Mitchell talk, it's literally the intro to a bum fights video. It was like, the earth is flat and the aliens are watching us. Okay? Now picture that, a bum on the side of the street. And then you get Kron Gracie. Look, he doesn't even have to talk. Just look at the guy. And they're like, welcome to bum fights. And then they fight for $100. And actually, quick fact before I break this down. If you don't know what bum fights is, they literally would pay homeless people to fist fight each other. And they videotaped it. It was like a phenomenon in the early 2000s. Then Dr. Phil had the CEO of bum fights on his show. And the guy shows up dressed like Dr. Phil. Dressed just like him. Has a bald cap and everything. And they're like, what are you doing? He's like, well, you said I exploit people for money. I exploit mentally ill people for money. That's literally what you do. So I'm dressed like you because we are the same. It was an all-time television moment. All time. Anyway, we got Bryce Mitchell taking on Kron Gracie. Bryce Mitchell, dominant wrestler. And he's not great at it. Arkansas in general is not good at wrestling. But in the octagon, Bryce Mitchell will wrestle his little ass off. And he'll get those takedowns. He sticks to a game plan. He averages over 3 takedowns per fight. And that is a low number. That's a good number. Because that means he has phenomenal control, which he does. Because not only is he a good wrestler, he's got very good jiu-jitsu as well. He's got insane control. He's got phenomenal scrambles. He will shoot takedowns. He will stay relentless. He does have plenty of cardio. His striking isn't phenomenal. If you go watch Edson Barboza, he did drop Edson Barboza in that fight. But the reality is Bryce Mitchell is a forward pressure grappler that's got decent takedowns, very good jiu-jitsu, certainly some phenomenal scrambles. He is coming off one of the worst one-punch knockouts I have ever seen, though. He was just stiff as a board from the minute it made impact to when he bounced off the canvas. Taking on Kron Gracie. Kron Gracie is somebody, don't look at the picture, because if you look at that, don't look at the picture. Just look at the last name. He fights like somebody would fight with that last name. Phenomenal grappler, very high-level BJJ experience, whole bunch of accolades, but he only has 7 MMA fights. And his losses are pathetic. They're bad losses. Like Bryce Mitchell was just knocked out cold. Not a good look, right? But he stood there like a man, ate a shot. Kron Gracie starts wiping his ass on the carpet like a dog with a dingleberry, looking to pull guard. His striking's atrocious. Just, it's bad, dude. It's bad. It's crazy that in 2024, actually, Kron Gracie's last fight, I think, was 23. Maybe it was 2022. Whatever it was. It's crazy that in this modern era, in the biggest promotion in history, the title, the headliner of this sport, right? UFC. They represent the sport. There's still a giant chunk of human beings out there that call it UFC. They don't call it mixed martial arts. They call it UFC. That we got people like Kron Gracie scooting his ass, laying on his back like a flipped turtle, having no idea what to do in the rest of the fight. It's crazy. It is crazy. And this is going to be his second pay-per-view fight in a row. It's nuts. The Gracie last name is a very respected, meaningful name. That name changed this sport. Changed it. It actually invented this sport. Here's your history lesson. The UFC started as an infomercial for the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu system. That's what it was. The Gracies came to America, started their jiu-jitsu, and they said, hey, we need to show the world that jiu-jitsu is better than this karate bullshit and all this other stuff going on. So they said, let's get the scrawniest, dweebiest one of us, which was Royce Gracie. And they said, let's throw these people in a cage and we'll just let them fight. But make sure you get the scrawny one so the world can see it doesn't matter who you are physically. And he went out there and he showed the world how important jiu-jitsu is. They literally changed this sport. They changed all combat sports. It's a very respected last name. And then you get Kron Gracie coming out here, losing the way he loses, having no ability to do anything else in a fight. All he can do is grapple. It's crazy that happens in modern MMA at this level. Crazy. Bryce Mitchell wins this fight. Minus 550 should be a gift. The only concern is, Bryce Mitchell is going to wrestle and grapple, and Kron Gracie is a very, 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 very good grappler. I don't think it'll matter, though. That's the one and only concern. Bryce Mitchell's literally going to take this fight where Kron wants it to be. But, Bryce Mitchell should win this fight. It's crazy that we still get fights like this. Crazy. Then we have a rematch. Ciryl Gane taking on Alexander Volkov. This fight happened in 2021. Very straightforward outcome. No controversy. Wasn't even close. Ciryl Gane danced his way around, dominated this fight with just superior technique and phenomenal footwork. Very clear decision. And his name is Ciryl, not Cereal. Remember the drinking game I mentioned earlier? When I do the live breakdown with Jacob, and don't be a snitch, bitch, I told you this last time. When Jacob says cereal instead of Cyril, which he will do, he just can't control himself, I'm going to take a shot. I'm pointing at it. You can't see it. I'm going to take a shot of Aljamain Sterling's rum. I bought his rum because I support the fighters, and I'll take a shot every time he says cereal. If you losers tipped him off, and it's very clear he's saying cereal over and over and over to get me blackout drunk, I'm not going to do it. Okay? Let's just be normal people that can keep things to ourselves. But Ciryl Gane, remember when I bragged about how insane these graphics are? Well, that says Ciryl Gane's and not Gane. I apologize for the flub. But, hey, the rest of this stuff is accurate, and just look how spectacular. Look at these. Look at these graphics. Anyway, Ciryl Gane's a phenomenal striker. He's the exact same person we saw in 2021. Great footwork. The in-and-out motion, the in-and-out movement's insane. The only two fights that he lost was to the all-time king in John Jones and Francis Ngannou, who out-wrestled him. Francis Ngannou didn't even strike with Ciryl Gane. He was just shooting takedowns. So, yes, you can out-grapple Ciryl Gane. But we have yet to see somebody out-strike him. Ciryl Gane's striking is absolutely incredible because he's not just big one-punch power knockout heavyweight. He's got footwork. He's got movement. He's got technique. He just landed 109 significant strikes on Sergey Pavlovich? No, Sergey Spivak. On Sergey Spivak, and Sergey only landed 11. Okay? 109 to 11. That's the striking prowess of this man. He's taking on Alexander Volkov. Alexander Volkov has been a divisional staple for a very long time. He's been a top 10 heavyweight for about 7 years now. He's a very good fighter. He is very tall. He is very long. He's got a well-rounded skill set. He's also not a big one-punch power knockout kind of guy, but he can make things happen because of the length, because of the skills, because of his ability to adapt and how he evolves in fights. He just beat the most dangerous guy in this division, Sergey Pavlovich. But he did it with a jab, just a long pop, pop, pop. Because he fought a guy that plants his feet and bombs overhands. That's not Ciryl Gane. We saw this fight already, and it wasn't even close. And I haven't seen a single thing that has happened since the first time they fought that would make me think ground was covered. Ciryl Gane danced around, touched up Alexander Volkov, and beat him very clearly, very handily. In order for Volkov to have closed that gap or to be the pick, we have either needed to see dramatic improvements in the striking and head movement, which we haven't, or he turns into a wrestler. We haven't seen that either. He hasn't shot a takedown in 5 years, 4 years? Since 2020 was the last time he's taken somebody down. So to expect him to come out here as a Nurmagomedov is kind of an unreasonable expectation. Ciryl Gane wins this fight the exact same way he won the first one, and it's only 3 rounds. So he doesn't even have to do it for a full 25 minutes. Then we have the co-main event of the evening. This is a very interesting fight. It's a short notice matchup, but both of these guys were in training camp. Shavkat was already on this card. He was supposed to be fighting Belal Muhammad for the belt. Belal Muhammad, I think he had like a wild foot infection or something. He's off the card. So then they scramble. They bring in Ian Garry. He was supposed to be fighting next week at UFC Tampa. So now we have 2 very undefeated guys at the height of their popularity and careers. Well, not the height, but on their way up. So I guess right now the height, and then after this fight, one's going to go up, one's going to go down. And they're fighting in a 5-round co-main event. It's not for a belt. I am surprised it's not for a belt. I thought this was for an interim welterweight title. I'm shocked they didn't do that. I don't know why they didn't do that. It must be, there has to be a reason. Like, I don't know why they didn't do it for an interim belt. Because Belal Muhammad's obviously out. Maybe it's just because he's only out for like a month. I don't know. Either way, this is a great fight. And it's a great matchup, and it's already very controversial. Shavkat Rakhmonov, 18-0 with 18 stoppages. He's knocking people out. He's submitting people. Shavkat Rakhmonov feels like a very special guy. The 100% finish rate is insane. You're not going to see anything like it, especially not at this level. He can win a fight everywhere. He is also hard to hit, and that's because he's got decent movement. He's shooting takedowns. He's closing distance. He's bombing. He's spinning. He's got judo. He's got wrestling. He's very active. It is insane what this guy can do. His offensive takedowns, though, probably need a little bit of work. Taking on Ian Garry, also undefeated. But Ian Garry, not quite as versatile as Shavkat is. He's a very good striker. He's got crazy hand speed and great footwork. He does a phenomenal job controlling that speed and the footwork, getting in and out, trying to avoid danger. He's landing almost 6 significant strikes per minute, hit with about 3. He also moved to shoot-a-box a few years ago. And shoot-a-box has improved the grappling. We just watched him squeak out a win against Michael Venom Page, and he did so with the grappling. And this is a surprisingly difficult fight for me to break down because instantly I'm like, Shavkat wins this fight, right? Ian, blah, 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 kind of sucks and cuck, all that bullshit. But it's like, man, my issue with Shavkat, though, is we have never seen him fight any meaningful amount of time. Yeah, he got to the 3rd round with Jeff Neal, but he also didn't look good in that fight. He got dotted up a little bit, ate some shots. So we don't know what it's going to look like if this fight goes long. We also don't know what it's going to look like if he can't take Ian down. Because Shavkat Rakhmonov's takedowns are not very good. They're not very good. He went 1 for 5 against Wonderboy. And that's not the first fight where he had multiple attempts that went nowhere. So Shavkat Rakhmonov, insanely dangerous, has more ways to win this fight. Certainly the more dangerous of the two. Ian Garry has no problem being a in-and-out decision point fighter. Has no problem doing that. Where Shavkat's trying to kill you. I'm going to pick Shavkat Rakhmonov, but I'm a little nervous here. These odds are pretty wide, and there's something to be said about the fact that Ian accepted this fight. Because he is a guy that takes his career seriously. I mentioned this last time. It's a very deliberate decision-making in his camp. He doesn't just Cowboy Cerrone his way through his career. Yeah, I'll fight this guy. I'll fight. He's being very specific about who he will fight, who he will not fight. He has famously turned down many fights that were bad matchups for him against wrestlers. But for him to accept this fight, instead of fighting Joaquin Buckley next week in a main event, is interesting. Because this is not for a belt. And people were like, oh, it guarantees him a title shot. Okay, so what? Smoking Joaquin Buckley would have also guaranteed him a title shot. Because Shavkat had this title shot already. So this was the fight that was going to happen. Smoke Joaquin. So it's like, it's an interesting situation here. that Ian Garry took this fight. That means he knows something. I'm still going to pick Shavkat. He just has more ways to win. So ultimately, that's the direction I have to go. The guy that can bomb, the guy that can get takedowns, the guy that can submit you. Like, I got to go that side of it. But minus 350, I don't know, man. I think I'm just going to watch this fight and enjoy it for what it is. And this is a spectacular co-main event. This is a phenomenal co-main event. And this fight is what's making this card very, very good. Then we have the main event of the evening. And in this main event, we have Kai Asakura, brand new to the UFC. That doesn't happen very often. It is not very often that you will get a main event with a UFC newcomer or a title fight from a UFC newcomer. But while Kai is the new name to most of us, he's not a new name to this sport. He had multiple world titles in other very large promotions in the world. He's a very good fighter. He's a very exciting fighter. And he is absolutely somebody the UFC wants to build around. Kai Asakura is really fun to watch. But he's a 135-pounder. This fight's at 125 pounds. So he has to get his ass across the other side of the world, cut a whole bunch of weight, fight in the biggest stage he's ever fought on. And not literally, because those arenas in Japan are much larger than you're going to get in the T-Mobile Arena. But you get what I'm saying. More eyes on him than ever. And that's a lot of pressure and a lot of circumstances there. But style-wise, he's a fast, aggressive striker. He thrives in those pride-style rules. The stomps, the knees to the head, the soccer kicks. He's lightning fast. He's very creative. He's got a ton of killer instinct. He never lets off the gas. He has no issue putting himself in harm's way to find a finish. He's a very mobile guy. He's very hard to corner. The takedown defense is going to be the biggest question in this fight because he hasn't fought a lot of grapplers in his career. He's taken on the dominant champion, Alexandre Pantoja. Pantoja just kind of walks forward and goes to work. He's got decent power in his hands. He can deliver some damage. Mostly a very good grappler with control and ground and pound. His striking is pretty formulaic, right? 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Shoot a takedown. But it's good enough to disguise the takedowns. It's good enough to set up the pressure. And it's effective because he also has some power in the mix as well. Very durable guy. People have only really seen him, or people that have only really beat him are wrestlers. And that's not what we have here. Another situation where if you want to convince yourself of anything, you can. If you want to tell yourself Pantoja wins here, which I have done, I do think he wins. I bet on him. If you want to tell yourself that Pantoja can win here, you're just going to convince yourself that Kai Asakura has no takedown defense. If you want to go the other way, you're just going to go run through Alexandre Pantoja's fights and just find the few moments where he was hit. And like, oh, he looks bad here. Oh, look, he got hit there. Kai Asakura's super fast. But I don't think it matters. Kai Asakura is going to be the much better striker. It's not even going to be close. But the wrestling is going to be the difference here. He hasn't fought somebody with the pressure of Pantoja. He hasn't fought somebody with the grappling of Pantoja, with the wrestling of Pantoja. He hasn't fought on this level before. He hasn't fought at 125 pounds on this level. But all of those things are a recipe for disaster. I think minus 260, great odds for Pantoja. They are slowly widening. He was minus 220 a week ago. They're slowly moving. Once people get out of the Thanksgiving rut and into the full swing of fights, that line's probably going to take off. Pantoja's the pick, and that is the breakdown. Guys, follow us on Instagram. I don't push that enough. We don't have enough Instagram followers. Follow us on Instagram. And then become a premium member to unlock everything you could ever want or need heading into a fight week. Data Analyzer, I can't praise this stupid thing enough. Everything you could ever want in one single tool, and it is built out for the future. Fights in 2025 are ready to go. Are you a casual that just waits till fight week to look at this shit? Or are you a man or a woman who does their research, takes a peek ahead of time, tries to find the value before the value is gone? Well, you can do that now with the Data Analyzer. You have full access to the line movement tracker as well with premium membership. This is going to give you the opening odds, current odds, win probability, and line movement for every fighter on every card. The Prop Hunter, a curated set of data specifically designed to help you find your prop bets. The DraftKings Optimizer that will build lineups for you with a couple clicks of the button, preloaded with the best ownership projections on the planet. And then you're going to get a kid from New Zealand and a robot. Both of them picking fights, both of them doing so with remarkable accuracy. Every single thing I just mentioned, a bunch of things I didn't mention, available right now. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. It is only $10 for an entire month's worth of access. Welcome back, guys. I'm looking forward to this fight card, the next fight card, and every fight card I'm going to break down during the break.